Today's question is kind of a fun one. I think there's a lot of people in this boat. So, talking about training with multiple pistols. Let's see. Great video. So, I posted a video talking about perfect holster rigs or the setups I use. This was one of the question. My question is, how many different guns do you shoot on a range trip? I have 15 different handguns, and I love 10 of them. The other 5 I just like, basically. So, I will take and shoot at least 10 of them to a range trip. Am I doing myself a disservice by doing that? I always shoot a Prodigy, Witness, Canic, let's see, Combat, and a Rival. They should see USPSA and Steel Challenge help. So, by the time you watch, or by the time this comes out, I would have probably dropped another video that's in queue talking about kind of the beauty of just sticking to one gun and not switching between the guns. However, I know a lot of people that like more guns means more fun, and people like shooting different guns, and not everyone wants to just own, well, if people that have seen the movie The Accountant, where it's just got like one spoon, one fork, one knife, one plate, one cup. Why would you need more than one? That's all you need. So for pistols, having 2 or 3 or 4 identical guns just set up, and that's all you shoot. Not everyone wants to do that. So I'll give you a few rules or a few things to think about when you go to the range. This all depends on what you want to accomplish. For example, do you want to shoot like carbine and handgun? This person is a Steel Challenge shooter as well as USPSA. So maybe you want to work on a rimfire gun for Steel Challenge and a centerfire gun for USPSA. Maybe you want to work on a target pistol for competing, and then work with your carry gun a little bit before you go. So there's lots of different ways to think about this. But I'll give you one rule of thumb I like. I always prefer to shoot the gun with the most horsepower first. I'll explain why. In the example of rifle or pistol, the rifle, I feel like it's got a lot more potential. A side note, it's also heavier, so it takes more out of me to run around, mount the gun, shoot it aggressively, shoot it properly even, at different distances, and the gun heats up a lot. So I'm going to shoot that first, just because I'll get my training out of the way, the gun heats up, and then it can, sit on a bench or table, maybe with a fan on it while it cools until I'm ready to pack up or call it a day. Or maybe I shoot it first, then train with my handgun that I brought for a little bit, then switch back to after that's cool, rotate through another set of magazines, then let it just cool until I'm ready to leave. In the event of, let's say, a centerfire handgun and a rimfire, either handgun, pistol, or rifle, I always shoot the centerfire first. The reason for that is, well, if you shoot 22, let's say you shoot a few hundred rounds working on Steel Challenge, you get to the point where you feel pretty dialed in, and that gun does not require much input. You just basically hold the gun there, and the bullets just stack where you look. The gun doesn't kick a lot. You don't have to hold on to it really hard. It's like a very friendly to shoot. Kids can shoot it, And with an adult like Steel Challenge, you can shoot those guns really, really aggressively, really fast. But the amount of recoil and the level of input from that gun is not much. Now, if you shoot a few hundred rounds for that working on Steel Challenge, you get really tuned in with it, especially the fast stage. Let's say, be a little nerdy, for people that are familiar with Steel Challenge, like Pendulum. So you look at that, okay, it's farther distance shooting, it's small steel plates. This is not easy. So if you get used to shooting those 4 far plates, it's like just drawing to the color, it's like color, 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 and just stacking shots. You get used to how the gun feels when you switch to a 9mm anything, comped, non-comped, ported, not ported, whatever. It's going to feel like a cannon compared to what you've been training on with the 22. So I prefer to use, like I said, the gun that recoils the more or the most horsepower first. Because in this example, I would train with a centerfire gun for USPSA or whatever you want to accomplish, then switch to the lesser gun, the 22, that needs less inputs. It's a little bit quieter, but I feel like it's easier, at least for me, to move to a gun that recoils less, then get really tuned in with the 22 where I'm really pushing the times, then jump to a gun that recoils, I don't know what the number would be, 10 times more probably. Or maybe it's 6 times more if you're looking at the numbers. It's noticeably more recoil. So it's going to feel all of a sudden like the gun's a cannon going off. And then in that situation, it ends up taking a few hundred rounds to even get used to how much the gun recoils. And if you only brought a few hundred rounds of 9mm to train with, in this example, by the time you're about done training, you're just getting used to the gun. If you bring two similar guns, so let's say they're both 9mm, you bring a Glock and an M&P, then I don't know that it really matters a ton. For that example, I would pick whichever gun you want to assess the cold performance on more. For example, I use this gun for carry or this gun for matches. That's the one I'm more focused on or I'm more interested in. So you could do a little bit of dry training or none and then just shoot it and just see what happens. But you're only going to get one chance of the day at cold shooting. So for those two, I'd pick the one that I was most concerned about. If you're a competitive guy, a USPSA person, whatever, and you bring your competition gun or your match equipment and then anything else, I would always put the preference on the competition stuff. Just because I'm guessing that's what you're training for and what you want to get better at. If it's a carry gun and a full-size gun, it's up to you. What do you want to get out of this? Because if you want to shoot your carry gun first, because you're really worried about your cold shooting on that for the day, then just practice for matches afterwards. That makes sense. Or you could also say I'm really, really concerned about matches and I'm just going to shoot my carry gun, afterwards. All right, so with that out of the way, let's jump back to this guy's question. He's saying he has 15 different handguns, but he normally takes 10. His 10 favorite guns goes the range. And I think it depends on what you want to do. If you want to just go shoot and have fun, then there's no big deal. Take 20 guns with you. The problem is, it's like, how much ammo do you have to shoot and what can you accomplish? Because let's say you take 10 different guns, and if you want to shoot, well, if you're shooting even 1,000 rounds, which sounds like a pretty heavy range session, then you're only shooting 100 rounds through each gun. If you're shooting 500 rounds, you're only shooting a couple magazines through each pistol. That's not really enough to make a change to your habit or get better at all. That's just, you might just enjoy shooting. It's like, oh, this is like, for example, this Beretta 92 is a fun gun. It's a cool gun. It's, John McClane had one. Riggs had one. It's cool. It's iconic, and I like shooting it. But if I take this thing to the range, I don't really have any expectations for performance. I would just be shooting it because I think it's fun. It's a cool gun, and I'm glad I own it. But I'm not going to the range really with any amount of expectations for cold performance on demand. I might not even start it from a holster. I would just take this thing because I think it's fun to shoot. So if you're taking a few different guns just for a fun range day, it doesn't matter. Otherwise, taking 10 guns with any hopes of bettering your skill, I think is probably a little bit delusional and a bit waste of time. So for that example, I would say, yes, you're doing yourself a disservice. I'd probably do 2 pistols. It all depends on how many rounds you're going to shoot, but 3 would be the absolute max, and probably more towards along the lines of 2 would make the most sense. Just because they all have such little nuances and difference between them. If you're shooting a Glock 34, a 17, a 47, and a 19, taking all those together and shooting them all is not going to be that big of a deal. But if you have a DASA gun, then a gun with a manual safety, then a comped gun with a light trigger, those all, it's just going to take you at least 50 or 100 rounds to start to get dialed in with them. You're actually, moving forward with your training. So you end up with a situation where the ammo you shoot through the gun is just kind of getting used to it. And once you kind of get used to it, then you switch to another gun. Which, it all depends on what you want to do. For example, if I take my wife to the range, I don't have any expectations of getting better that day. And I would probably just take fun stuff. So what? She likes shooting the steel frame with the Parker Mountain dual port comp. So I take that, take my MP Fizzle. The MP5 is always fun to shoot with a can. What else? Definitely a 22 pistol, probably the can for that. So a little Volquartsen Uppard 22 with a Surefire suppressor for that. Okay, cool. What else? Well, maybe one of my 9mm PDPs that's threaded for a can. Bring a suppressor for that. Okay, cool. These are all fun guns to shoot. I'd have a fun time going through a couple hundred rounds and just shoot a little bit through each gun. But there's not really any expectation on building skill. It's just a fun time. So, and going to the range itself and just having fun, there's nothing wrong with that. But for this person, like for this specific question, so to go back to the original like topic, is taking at least 10 guns to the range. Am I doing myself a disservice for that? Yes. Always shoot a prodigy, a witness, the Canic. Let's see, Rival S, Canic TTI Combat. Yeah, I mean that's just it's all too much. So parsing through like this list, you could look at, okay, I want to do the Canic steel frame and the combat. Well, it's probably, I think you could use similar holsters, the same holsters, same magazines. Maybe you shoot the comped gun first or second, whatever. But like you could just shoot those guns a little bit for that range session. Then the next day you take 2 similar guns, or maybe they're opposite guns, but picking 2 or 3 guns is definitely max. But for 99% of people, if you just want to get good at shooting, just taking 1 pistol, well, taking 2 pistols that are pretty much identical to have a backup is the path I would suggest for most people, unless you just want to have fun. But if you want to have fun, I think 2 pistols is about max, or 2 systems. So a centerfire and a rimfire, a carbine and a handgun, a competition handgun and a carry gun, something along those lines. So hope that's helpful. Gives you something to think about. Let me know in the comments what you think. If you agree, disagree. How many guns do you take to the range? That's kind of interesting because I could be disconnected, and most people like taking a whole briefcase full of guns to the range. So appreciate you watching. Like, share, subscribe, all that nonsense. And appreciate you watching and hope you have a good day.